Hello and welcome to today's video all about choosing the right grass seed. So hello and welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Lawn Association. Apologies that we've been away a little bit, but we live in a very rural area and we've had more internet problems than Twitter in the last week to 10 days, so apologies that we haven't had many videos out there, but it's been busy. We've been very busy. The online learning course had some great news. The English Heritage gardeners, I suppose you'd call them, have taken the online learning course, which was great news for us and great news for them. It does mean that their gardeners and their trainees and apprentices are all going to get a great foundation for understanding lawn care, and it's very important actually for anybody to get that proper understanding. We've got millions of people on YouTube and Twitter calling themselves lawn experts who are learning as they go along, so getting a fundamental understanding from a learning course is really important. It's something that you can obviously use in your business, you know, on your van as well, showing that you've got some sort of formal certification, if you like, that you know what you're talking about. So that's been great news for us. We're still in talks with a number of other large companies as well, so it's very exciting news for us, and plenty going on. So anyway, today's video all about choosing the right grass seed. So choosing the right grass seed. Now, choosing the right grass seed is really important, because obviously the type of grass that you're going to put down on your lawn is going to give you an understanding, or you'll certainly need to know how you're going to maintain that lawn. So you'll see lots of YouTube videos with people putting all sorts of grass seeds down. They never really describe that much about the grass seed. We tend to think that everyone's an expert germinating grass seed, when truthfully Mother Nature does most of it. We just put it in the ground. Let's not blow our own trumpets too much. So when it comes to grass seed, we've got three main types of grass in the UK. We've got bent grass, as you can see on this lawn here, which has also got fescue in as well, and we've also got the ryegrass dominant lawns as well. And I think, you know, to be fair, you know, I personally have preferences, like we all have preferences, but one thing, and we'll start on bent grass now because we're on this lawn, but one thing about bent grass, in fact one thing about any lawn that you've currently got, is the grass seed that's on there is actually telling you it grows really easily. The added bonus with bent grass, as we know, because it's called stone-oleferous and it creeps and it grows almost for you, it's also one of those grasses that can be very time saving. So if we look at this now, we're going to go back. We put some patterns on today just for a bit of effect look, but one thing, if you come down on this area here, and this is bent and fescue dominated, you will see that the grass is starting to creep in the direction that we've actually mown it, and that's pushing the stolons even further. And also with bent grass, you know, when you put stripes in the lawn, they tend to stay there a lot longer as well. But going back to what we did on this lawn, this wasn't about making the lawn look fancy. This was just purely trying to show what bent grass actually does. Now we seeded it, beg your pardon, we didn't seed it. This was seeded many years ago, of course. We scarified this, I beg your pardon, on the 1st of February, and it was an idea to sort of see whether February was the new March. So we started it on February the 1st. We did this sort of sustainable idea of battery powered scarifier, battery powered fertilizer, true grass lawn fertilizer as well, and a moss control as well. And the idea was really to show how simple lawn care can be when the grass does the work for you. Now, to be perfectly honest, there's not a lot gone on here because the grass is just filled in. It's done itself. We haven't really done anything. You know, we we can blow our own trumpet and say, yes, there's some patterns on here. But the object was to show how bent grass can do all the work for you. All it's done, instead of growing up vertically all the time like something like ryegrass does, this grows in a horizontal motion, and of course it creeps and it fills in. So every time it tries to grow up, we cut it, and it has to keep going thicker and thicker. And you can see this is a bit like a velvet carpet right now, but we've done nothing. We've done nothing at all. It's done the work for us. We've scarified it. We controlled a little bit of moss that was in there. This has had no herbicide. We've got weeds in here, but what you can see, because of the density of this, even though we've had no rain for 6 weeks or so, 5 or 6 weeks now, it's still green, it's still healthy, but we've filled the grass in so that weeds can actually work in harmony. There are weeds in here. You know, you can come down and you can see little daisies that have adapted themselves to the height. So there, you know, we've got daisies in here, we've got clover in here, we've got a bit of all sorts, but that's fine. It doesn't detract from the actual presentation of the lawn. And this won't. This is a sustainable lawn. This is a sustainable grass. This is a native grass. This is a black cat, a beautiful black cat. Hello. But it gives you the idea that bent grass will, if you choose bent grass, this will actually do the work for you. This makes lawn care very simple. But it's also, because we got these stolons, if you're looking to take your lawn to the next level above even something like this, which is not trying at all, then this is the sort of lawn where you want to be using a cylinder mower, you want to be verticutting your lawn. Verticutting was designed for this. It wasn't designed for ryegrass. When you verticut a plant, you're doing a very light scarification essentially, and you're increasing the thickness as well as thinning out the thatch layer. So if you want a nice, really nice lawn, this is the sort of grass for you. Now, when you germinate grass seed, you see lots of people on YouTube throwing down grass hither and thither. But what they don't actually tell you is that, for example, with a lawn like this, is once you've actually got the seed in the ground and it's germinated, you'll never need to overseed your lawn again. But I just wanted to point out a small identification here. So what you can see in here, you can see, if it can looking close enough at my grubby fingernails there, you can see fescue seed. But if you come over, so fescue, for example, will have, you know, 20, 30 grass plants per seed. This little brown one over here, which is so small, that's bent grass. So when you think about choosing grass seed, trying to germinate that very small bit of grass seed is actually very difficult, and very pointless in here as well. You know, we don't really have any gaps anymore. We've got some dry patch appearing, but trying to germinate any grass seed when you've got grass on there is incredibly difficult. And I'd love to see the YouTube videos that show these wonderful bits of lawn renovation where they show overseeding and top dressing. I'd like to see the actual germination success, because generally speaking, unless you go back to almost to bare bones, the existing grass is going to outcompete, and your success rate of germination is going to be incredibly low. I'm risking the wrath of my wife here with a very expensive, ridiculous Bridgewater mug, which I'm going to put down before I drop it. So anyway, so there we go. If you want to talk about bent grass, it's not particularly a grass seed that you'll need to overseed into, but it's a great one to start with. You know, as we walk down here, yes, we've got some lovely patterns. We've got lots of lateral growth, creeping around. If we really want to be a little bit obsessive, we can start grooming this and verticutting it and making it look like a bowling green. I don't sure why, because this is perfectly good enough. In fact, as I say, this has had no water, no chemicals. It doesn't even have fossil fuel now. And this is a lawn which I think a lot of people, including this cat, would be more than happy with. So that's bent grass. And it's here, you know, because it's a native grass. This was probably just a bit of meadow grass, or meadow field, if you wanted to call it that. But this is the natural grass in here, and it's growing really, really easily. We'll never have to overseed again. We'll just keep pruning it to make it thicker. So the next grass seed we're going to talk about is our lovely ryegrass. Now we've got a lawn over here which was shown on a video earlier that shows a ryegrass lawn. It was very thin, very muddy, very awful in my opinion. But ryegrass is out there and it's a dominant grass and people do like it. So let's go and check that one out, and then we can talk about and have a look at the actual seed itself again. So here we are on the ryegrass fescue power annua lawn, and if you remember, we talked a little bit about the problems of a ryegrass dominant sward, certainly in this case that's enclosed with 4 sides or 5 sides here as maybe, where water can't translocate outside, it has to go down and through. And if you remember, this was very, very thin in here, which we now can see with these big, ugly annual meadowgrass plants seeding. You can see the differences even in 2 patches next to each other. Annual meadowgrass is obviously a weed grass. We determine it as a weed grass, but it's a dominant, probably one of the world's most dominant plants, because it chooses to come in gaps like this, which is a great adaptive technique actually, but it's an opportunist grass, and it, like I say, if it finds an opportunity to germinate, it will drop millions of these little seeds off. And ryegrass grass lawns tend to give you that. Ryegrass, as we said before, is 1 plant to 1 seed. So when you look at football pitch mentality, I suppose, and when you look at what I'd call the very, very lawn enthusiastic society, they tend to be overseeding the lawns right now. We're towards the end of April, and they're overseeding now. It's a little bit cold, but their lawns have been looking a little bit rank, I suppose, for the last 4 or 5 months. Now it is a winter pitch grass. This was designed for winter pitches, and it's made its way into back gardens. But when you look at this grass seed and the way the plant grows, it's very much, I mean, this was cut actually 3 or 4 days ago, and you can see already, even though this lawn hasn't been fed at all this year, you can see the grass here is 3 or 4 inches in height again. So all of the energy that the plant gives you and the colour it gives you essentially ends up in your grass bag, in your grass catcher. It's not particularly much good unless it's got, for example, fescue in amongst it. And it is used with fescue to give you that density. And we've shown before this area under here where it's certainly very dry and very shady. We've got a very discoloured patch with some weeds coming in as well. But this is fescue grass down here. It's a lot paler in colour, but it's more shade tolerant and drought tolerant. And where you can see the 2 mixes together, you can see the ryegrass crowning, and you can see the fescue sort of binding amongst it. Now that's actually quite a nice, reasonable piece of turf, but the fescue isn't growing everywhere. This is a lawn that's just maintained, so we're not showcasing any perfect lawn here. There are some guys out there that do some, you know, good work maintaining ryegrass lawns. They're overseeding, as we say, right now, because that's what you need to do. You've got to think about a grass. If you want to be a little bit obsessive about your lawn, then ryegrass can work for you. It's not the world's worst grass by any stretch of the imagination, but it does come with added work. As you saw with the bent grass lawn, you know, one of the downsides of, or one of the plus sides of not having any internet to be able to edit videos and things like that is the fact that there was nothing happening. The grass was doing all the work for us. This is very different. This one's actually has thickened up somewhat, but it's thickened up with weed, as you can see, because there were so many thin areas. The dandelions are coming in thick and fast here. You can see absolutely millions of patches of annual meadow grass growing in here. You've got some slightly older here, next to a patch that's slightly younger, next to a patch that's even younger, and it's a very ugly looking grass. Now, lots of people talk about hand weeding annual meadow grass and things like that, which is great. If that's what you want to do, you'll never win, because annual meadow grass is the world's most dominant plant. Here we have Dusty back again. He likes my leg for some reason. Somebody has to. So anyway, when it comes to this grass, if you want to be obsessive about it, you've got to think about how you're going to maintain this lawn. Do you want to be overseeding it once or twice, maybe even per year, every year, just to try and keep out a weed grass? If you're going to be doing things like verticutting, you're not going to benefit the ryegrass whatsoever. You may benefit the fescue that's in it, if you've got fescue in it, but it's a pruning technique. Verticutting was designed for golf greens, bowling greens, things like that, that had bent grass and fescues on there. If you've got ryegrass, you're not going to benefit. Your verticutting is not going to do anything at all. May crush a lot of people, but that's the truth. You're just doing it because somebody else might be thinking it's a good idea, or even a mower manufacturer might tell you it's the thing to do. It's a pruning technique. If you don't have a grass that can be pruned, you're pretty much wasting your time. So anyway, when it comes to ryegrass, yes, it can give you this dark green lush colour. It can look superb at times, but be aware it's going to be difficult to maintain this grass over that winter period. During the summer it's very easy. Grass grows really easily. It's not down to us most of the time, it's down to Mother Nature. If we get rain, if we add food to them, if we mow them really nicely, they can look fantastic. But again, it's not the most sustainable grass species in the world, and it's certainly not going to be one where you can sit back and enjoy it. You will have to be a little bit obsessive about it. Now, if we can get away from this cat for 2 seconds, although I don't really want to, she's very lovely. I just want to show you the grass seed, 2 grass seeds over here. And what we've got is a big lump of ryegrass, as you can see here, and you can see the slightly smaller fescue right next to it as well, blowing away a little bit. So when it comes to grass seed choices, what you've got to remember, and it's interesting to know, because when you look at seeding into a lawn like this, where all the growth is growing upwards very, very quickly, you've got to get success rate out of this. You've almost got to scratch this back and scalp this back to bare bones. It won't kill the ryegrass. You know, as we know, ryegrass is used on things like cricket wickets. When it's scalped down very, very low, sometimes to the point where the grass obviously dies off. But it can handle scalping quite nicely. But to get success of that germination, you've got to remember and go back to how grass seed germinates. Now, we tend to throw it down and think, well, that's it. It will germinate now. We cover it in a bit of soil, and nature does the rest for us. Nature actually does all of it. Let's be fair. We just do a little bit of preparation. But when it comes to germinating a grass seed, you've got to remember, how does it germinate? Because it gives you an indication as to how much water you're going to need, where you're going to need to water. and what you're going to need to do to get that germination success. So when you look at those pods, those seed pods of the ryegrass and the fescue and the tiny little bent grass one as well, think about how that's going to germinate, because the way grass seed germinates is that it takes in water, you know, either nature adding it or us adding it, and then the big orange ball heats it up, swells it up, and that's how a seed pod pops. Now of course, if you've got grass seed in the bottom of some of this, especially that very small bent grass, you've got absolutely no chance practically, because all the light is being blocked out by this ryegrass as well. So when it comes to overseeding your lawn, you know, you've got to think, how do we get success rate from that grass seed? And as I say, with the bigger seed pod, it's much easier. You know, growing grass seed, growing ryegrass grass is not difficult. As I said earlier, nature does it for you. It's really simple. Lots of people put YouTube videos and Instagram posts about, you know, look at my fantastic bit of grass seed germination. You could throw ryegrass down on most pieces of soil and it'll germinate. It's really not that tricky to do. But trying to grow new grass seed and get high success rates, you've got to obviously do a number of different things. And again, you've either got to sort of look at grass seed and go, well, I'm going to have to do this every year. Do I want to do this every year? How am I going to prepare this every year? If you look at bent grass, it's something where you don't even have to think about it too much once you've got it. So an interesting choice. But the last lawn we're going to look at, which is a bit further at the back there, that's more, we've got a few more issues with that one, but that's more of a fescue dominant grass seed. It was put down with the same sort of mixture, I think, as this one, but as you know, with this one, the ryegrass has dominated, the fescue has disappeared because the lawn sits too wet. We've got a little bit of the opposite problem on the other one, where fescue is dominating. So let's go and have a look. So here we are on the third lawn. I don't know if you remember, but one of the things that we've got under here are ground source heat pumps. And you can see, especially if I do a funny little run down here, you can see where these actually are. We've got two mounds here. We're not actually sure whether the heat pumps or whatever they are under here or under the mounds. We're not quite sure, but the ground moves here. So when they constructed this lawn, a garden designer brought in some topsoil. Well, I say topsoil, it's probably a lie. It was brown stuff, labelled probably worst stuff to grow something in ever. But they brought it in, and so on top of the ground moving with the heat source pumps, we've got a very poor soil as well. And this one drains very well. Because of that, we found these fans have stopped coming in. Our cute little cat is back again. So what we found with this one is that fescue now is dominating. And if you come down, you can see some of this fescue in here. There's very wiry grass in here. There is ryegrass in amongst it as well, but this is very dominant with fescue. It strangely enough doesn't actually have huge amounts of thatch levels in here, but again, this is a lawn actually cut with a robot mower. Little Husqvarna down there. I think we call that one Hedwig, and you know, it beavers away and it cuts this fairly regularly. Did have some new blades on at the start of the season, and it's looking okay. It's not, again, it's not a manicured lawn. None of these videos will show you necessarily how to get that manicured lawn, because I'm not that obsessed with manicured lawns myself. Healthy lawns is a very different proposition, but when you get it healthy, you can obviously take it further, and it's able to withstand it much better as well at the same time. So the dryness here, although we've got obviously some pockets down in here that do sit a little bit damper, and the ryegrass does sort of dominate those two little sways there. These high spots are very much dominated by the fescue grass as well. And as you saw with the fescue, although it will, because it grows via rhizomes above the ground, I'm very worried I'm going to tread on this cat in a moment. Because it grows via rhizomes above the below the surface, I beg your pardon, it is sort of prunable, so you can sort of do scarification and verticutting, mainly to control the little bit of dead material that constantly falls off. It's constantly shedding leaves, which is giving you that sort of surface and subsurface thatch levels. But again, it's showing you that it grows very well here. Now, to enhance this, you can obviously keep maintaining it as it is, and what you'll find is that the fescue will probably in another 3 or 4 years dominate this lawn completely, and the rye will almost be disappeared completely. So when it comes to the 3 grass species that we've talked about, you've got bent grass, which again, just recapping, you've got bent grass, which is going to give you a great start, it's going to give you a great platform, and it's going to do most of the work for you, which makes you look very, very good, very, very easily. That's why it's certainly the country's most dominant grass. It grows everywhere across the UK. Go into your field, into your park, it'll be there. That's why it's a great adaptive plant, and it's one that can work for you much, much better than the other two. If you've got ryegrass, you've got to contemplate you're going to be overseeding your lawn on a regular basis, but you need to consider the right conditions. If you obviously have fescue, you've got another dominant sward here, but you've got to realise that certainly thatch control is going to be a little bit more up on your menu than bent grass and ryegrass perhaps. But they are really, really sort of interesting. The 3 grasses grow incredibly differently. A lot of people look at grass and think, well, it's all very much the same, but a lot of fescues are the same, a lot of bent grasses are the same, and a lot of ryegrasses are the same. Doesn't particularly matter which one you've got, but work with the one you've got. If you need to start again, you can obviously choose something a little bit different. But this is one of the benefits of the online learning course. It actually gives you the sort of fundamental ideas behind where your starting point is. And if you don't know the grass species that you've got dominating your lawn, you're not going to really have that much understanding about how it's going to grow. So that gives you the fundamentals, and it can take your sort of lawn to the next level very, very simply and very easily. So we'll head back down to the last lawn now, because now we're coming up about 10 weeks after, I think 10 weeks after we scarified that lawn. We now need to start putting down the next true grass application. So I'm going to whiz down there, and I'll take this cat with me. So anyway, 10 weeks on from, I think it was 1 hour's work actually. And the next thing we've got to do is 2 or 3 minutes of putting some true grass down with our lovely little battery hand spreader there. And that's about it. That's it for probably another 8 to 10 weeks. Quite easy, wouldn't it? But anyway, if you did like the video, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm told to say that all the time, so appreciate that. If you haven't taken the online learning course, get along and have a look at that. You'll be surprised what you might actually learn from that. And you can also, as I say, start using your certificate and also your VAN badge as well, which shows that you've got level 1 certification as well. But we'll certainly be coming back fairly soon with some more videos. So apart from that, thank you very much, and I better go on with feeding this lawn.